Welcome to the Rocky and Meisty Show, everyone. Breaking news, a flash Rocky and Meisty Show. Breaking news, Sean Payton has officially retired from the league. Obviously, I pointed out last night on the YouTube short some interesting statistics, right? There's only three remaining coaches, Meisty, that have been with the same team since prior to 2010. And there's only four coaches that have been with the same team for over a decade. The three coaches are Bill Belichick, Mike Tomlin, and John Harbaugh. And Pete Carroll got to the Seahawks in the beginning of 2010. So those are the four longest tenured coaches in the league now, right? Sean Payton would have rounded out the top five. Now he's gone. A lot of rumors out there, Micey, right? Like maybe going to the Cowboys' former team. They're not sure if he's playing a little cool over here. I'm going to retire, go out into the sun, and then just make a little move, go to the Cowboys. But anyway, it's obviously a big loss for the Saints. A lot of different things I have here is, it's very hard to assess the impact that a coach has on a team because he doesn't play, right? We can see what we see. I'm sure you would agree with that, Meisty, right? It's very easy to see what you can see. You see on the field how the players perform, especially watching all 22, right? You can sort of see all angles of the play, see if the receivers are running good routes, see if the linemen are blocking well. Obviously, not always have the time to watch it from all different angles, but if you do, you have the wherewithal to assess that. What do we really know about the impact the coach has? Can it be judged by wins and losses? I don't know because, he's had Drew Brees' entire career. But what I find impressive about Sean Payton is that the last 2 years, Drew Brees, I'm going to throw a couple interesting stats at you here, okay? Drew Brees' average depth of target last year was 6.1. Whether he completed the pass or not, his average depth of target was 6.1. This year, we're talking about Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill, not guys with rocket arms, right? Their average depth of target was nearly a yard higher. If you average them out, about a yard higher than Drew Brees. So they throw the ball down the field more. Drew Brees was very dink and dunk in that first year, and they won 11, 12 games and made the divisional round. And this year, he also, right, with such a revolving door at quarterback, Jameis Winston, went out 7 games into the season. They really went like 4-6 the rest of the season, but they also won the second. They won the remainder of that Bucs game that he left. You remember that Bucs game? They got the big pick six at the end. So they won that game. So really 6-4, 6-5 without him. However you want to judge that, or 4-6, 4-5-6 without him. Either way, the end of the season 9-8, knocking on the door. They were like a Ram, Niners not coming back from 17-0 away for making the playoffs this year. It was incredible what Sean Payton did. I think when coaches are able to compensate despite injuries and they're able to have their team playing at a high level, we saw it with John Harbaugh this year, right? That the Ravens' entire secondary was depleted, and yet they lost 3 games to the Packers and Rams and all those top teams by a combined like 4 points. Like, it was nuts. They had them in every single game, one play away from winning 5 or 6 of those games. Ultimately, they didn't. But point that you have your team playing hard. That's what I look at in a coach. Like, you have your team playing well despite injuries. The next man up, whether it's your scouts, whether it's the development side of the team, someone is there. You hired someone that has the ability to just bring in these players and have them playing hard no matter the circumstance.
I agree on some of the things, but I'm going to say this about coaches. At the end of the day, it's wins and losses, and that's it. There is no number, no quarterback rating, no defense statistics, nothing that changes. At the end of the day, it comes down to wins and losses for coaches. And Sean Payton wins, but he's not winning. He's not winning in the playoffs. But I think that the playoffs, it comes down to the players have to win. A coach can do everything he can, but in the playoffs, it's the players. But when it comes to regular season, I mean, Sean Payton is one of the best at it. So but even with wins and losses, there's context to it, like you mentioned, right? I mean, what are you gonna put it all on Matt LaFleur that they didn't win this year? Maybe. I mean, special teams, that's a part of it, but Rodgers not showing up and team, that's a factor as well. So obviously, and even the wins, right? Do you credit Belichick for all 6 wins? That's been the age-long discussion for all 6 Super Bowl wins when he's got the best quarterback of all time on his side. So there's context with that as well. No, so where you're right and you're wrong is where you're right is that Matt LaFleur gets all the credit for the regular season, but Matt LaFleur does not have to take the fact that Aaron Rodgers didn't show up for him in the playoffs. Once again, the playoffs changes everything. The playoffs makes it go from the coach's problems to the players' problems. A coach can do so much, but a coach has to last the whole season. In the playoffs, the players have to come through. I know it sounds weird, but that's how it is. The players have to win the playoffs. The coach can do so much for them, all season. But so I give Sean Payton a lot of credit for all those years. He had a lot of missed opportunities. You know, but other than that, I mean, he only won one Super Bowl, and so, you know, what does that mean from a coach? But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick has dominated the last 20 years. So in this time of in this generation, I guess, of football, the last 20 years, you can call it, it's okay not to win the Super Bowl because it was just Tom Brady and the Patriots, and now Tom Brady and the Bucks.
Right.
But even so, I mean, there's definitely red. I don't want to say red flags, but definitely stuff that are going to hurt his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of context with it. Like I mentioned, you have to look at Drew Brees. Like even in the playoffs last week, right? 2 weeks ago at this point, Cowboys, Niners, you mentioned it, and we mentioned 13 penalties that were called for
14.
in that game against the Niners. That's a coaching issue if it isn't anything. I mean, you don't know exactly if it's just boneheaded decisions by the players on the field and it's completely their fault. It's hard to know the context of those penalties, but the coach has to have them prepared, especially for, a mental lapse like that Dak Prescott had at the end of the game. It's his fault. It's also the coaching fault. Some of these things, there's probably a good reason to put the blame on the coach. Even in the playoffs, there are factors with that as well,
Correct.
Right.
The one thing is, I mean, I think they would have won that Super Bowl against that Rams, if that penalty play that never was called. I really think that was the year that they would have won a Super Bowl. So I give him, 1.5 Super Bowls, just for the record. In my book, 1.5.
1.5 Super Bowls. No, Super Bowls are a factor too. I just think that, there's so much context to these things. How do we really judge a coach? It's hard to know. But obviously, I think a good measuring stick is if he sticks with the team for this long, as Sean Payton's been with the Saints since 2005, 17 years, it's obviously a good sign pointing in his direction. And listen, like I mentioned, only 5 coaches prior to Sean Payton retiring have been with the same team for over a decade. So it's obviously good proof.
All those coaches have Super Bowls in the last 10, 15 years, right?
Each of them, no question. That's a factor. If you don't win a Super Bowl, if it's 10 years and you haven't won a Super Bowl,
but he's not. Yeah, but he has.
What I say?
But when was his last Super Bowl?
Who? Sean Payton in 2009 against the Colts.
2009
regular
season. We're over 10 years. We're over 10 years that he hasn't won a Super Bowl. All those other coaches have won Super Bowls in the last 10 years. It makes sense, but
correct.
Sean Payton. So I mean, we saw teams in basketball, and I don't want to compare the sports, but we saw a guy win Coach of the Year, number 1 seed, and lost his job because he couldn't win the finals. Right. The following year, in came what's his name for Toronto, the coach, and now they got a new coach and they ended up winning the finals. Now they also got Kawhi and fine, but Toronto
right, a factor.
They got Kawhi.
They also got Kawhi.
But a factor was that they got rid of their coach and that helped. So
sometimes you just need to change.
Correct.
Sometimes you just need to change.
You have to wonder. If all these years has it been Sean Payton holding them back?
Right. I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. You have with Rodgers throughout the years, what's been holding them back? They haven't won a Super Bowl in over a decade either. Is it Rodgers isn't a good quarterback? He's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, for some reason, it comes to divisional round, NFC Championship, he doesn't show up. So there's those factors as well. Maybe coaches choke too. I don't know how it works, what the psychology of it is. But you got to look at a guy like Mike Tomlin, right? Perfect example. Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh are perfect examples of it this year, right? Where they had teams with injuries and little talent on the field, and they both had them playing very hard, and every game was close. Mike Tomlin, I mean, the fact that he brought the Steelers to the playoffs this year, Big Ben's average depth of target against the Browns Monday Night Football was 2.7 yards. Like, the man had no arm this year. And you saw everyone knew at this point. He wasn't that good last year either. And the Steelers were 12-4 and had, the second best record in the conference? Like, Mike Tomlin, what he's just see how he has these guys playing. Even they were able to compensate for the injuries and compensate for the lack of talent on the field. That's what impresses me most about these coaches. And like I said, the longest tenured coaches in the league, Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, and Sean Payton. Look what Belichick did last year with the Patriots, 7-9. All of a sudden, he's got him back after 2 years with no Brady, got him back to winning double-digit games. So again, building up talent, even when there's no talent able to compensate with it, that's what impressed me most about a coach. And Sean Payton's been able to do that throughout his career.
Correct.
So I think that's what it comes down to. But you're right. It's hard to assess. Some blame has to be put on the coach for wins and losses. And some credit has to be given to him as well. And obviously, Sean Payton, we mentioned yesterday, he's a career winning percentage of 624. So he's had a successful career. It's going to be a big loss for the Saints, the legendary coach. How big of a loss? Maybe they can get another good coach in there. Obviously, more importantly, get a great franchise quarterback in there. Maybe Jameis is the answer. We'll have to discuss that throughout the offseason. Saints have an interesting, very fascinating. Yeah, right, in your dreams. Saints have a very fascinating quarterback situation as well, but they have a very fascinating head coaching vacancy as well. Will Sean Payton go back to the Cowboys? We'll have to wait and see. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Sean Payton has officially retired from the league. The legendary coach, now only three coaches that have been with the same team since prior to 2010. Have a great day.